finally worked. Please, please, you must listen to me. We do not have much time. Sandfew, Edmund, find them and they will help begin your journey. You will be hated, you will be persecuted, but you must persevere. You must move on to save your life, to save my life, everyone's life. You must get beyond the... And just like that, there I was, in a world so unfamiliar, but it felt like I had been here for a lifetime. I found a kind man not too far from where I started, the Lumbridge guide. He pointed me on my way towards Sandfew and towards Edmund, so that I could begin what I knew I had to. Luckily, Sandfew was just a short walk up the road. Sandfew and his people were not normal people. They were druids, kind druids. And they had discovered a method of concocting different potions that can make you stronger. Now, they said that I could also learn their methods, but they did say that I needed to complete the druidic ritual just as they had before I was able to learn. What the ritual consisted of was slaughtering 4 innocent animals: a rat, a cow, a chicken, and a bear. While these animals were not difficult to find, the bear being the most difficult of the 4 to kill, the only thing I recognized was how good it felt to have blood on my hands again. After obtaining the meat, I made my way to a nearby dungeon that was heavily guarded that Sandfew had told me about. I dunked my meat into the cauldron of thunder, and there was the completed ritual. All I had left to do was to return to Sandfew's associate. After completing my mission, I met with a man named Cake Mix. He was the master of herblore, and while he didn't teach me everything that he knew, he taught me enough to get me started on my journey. After a trek across the road and into the wilderness, I finally stumbled upon Edmund. He was more than a man that was simply going to help me on my journey, but he was a father. And Alrena, a mother who was worried sick about their child, who they believed had been taken and kidnapped in a plague-riddled city. She was able to give me a mask in which she thought would protect me within the city, and I met back with Edmund to crawl through the sewers to break into the city. Upon arriving, you could tell immediately that the city looked as if it was war-torn and distraught. Graveyards filled your eyes and a stench filled your nose as I looked for anybody that could help me. I eventually stumbled upon a politician of this region, and he was the mayor named Bravik, and he was a drunken loser. He was so hungover, he did not even care about his constituents. I eventually received a warrant from him and made my way to where I believed Elena was being held, and I found her. It turns out she was doing research on the plague, and they kidnapped in an attempt to cover up her work. I found the key and let her free. While Edmund was thankful for the return of his daughter, and he did train me just a little bit on the skill of mining, we knew that this wasn't the end. He suggested I go speak with his daughter Elena once again, because something was wrong within the city. Upon arriving to speak with Elena, she had told me that they had confiscated her equipment that she was testing the plague with. She'd mentioned that they had filled up the hole, and we need to find another way to get inside the city. After this, I found some pigeons to easily distract the guards near the watchtower, bunch of idiots. I found Omart, our covert, on the inside. He created a ladder that allowed me to climb over the wall and get back into the city. I knew that getting into their headquarters wouldn't have been as simple as knocking on the front door, so I devised a plan. I was going to poison them and pose as a doctor to get in. Once in, I made my way upstairs and I knew that Elena's equipment was locked behind that door, so I killed the man protecting it. My first kill, but certainly not my last. Once I safely extracted her equipment, I made my way back to Elena, and she needed me to have some test samples snuck in to her old mentor, which is when I stumbled upon the most unlikely men to help me out. These men cared not for politicians and their wars. They simply enjoyed a beer after a long, hard day's work, and they helped me sneak in what I needed to successfully. After posing as a priest to be able to get into Guydor's room, I had brought him the plague samples, and to his surprise and my surprise, it turns out after some testing, the plague was not real. Elena was shocked to say the least, but she was not surprised that the plague turned out to be nothing. She recommended that I go see the king immediately because he had to be notified. And of course, when I spoke with the king, he played but a fool. I could see right through it that he knew the entire time. What a sad fool he was. He did tell me about a great path that I could go down to continue my journey in finding out the truth here. The king said he believed the elves were at fault for what was happening in the Plague City, and there was a great passage named the Underground Pass. I took off my mask and my robes to begin a journey. And while I could see through the king's blatant lies, I knew I was no longer safe on that side of the world. Danger lurked behind me, and danger lurked in front of me, but I had no idea how difficult the journey ahead in the Underground Pass would be. Before I could even crack the beginning, I was already at a loss. Over and over and over again, I crushed my bones and lacerated my skin, but I knew that perseverance was the only way forward. Luckily, I did have a couple of friends during my journey. Koftik, he recommended that I shoot the drawbridge with an arrow as a way to climb across it, and he was a guide throughout the entire journey. I eventually made my way to a rope swing, in which I knew that I was not nimble enough to complete. Not the first try, anyway. So I made my way back up to the top after falling down, which unfortunately put us at the very beginning all over again. The second try yielded the same results as the first, but that doesn't mean that we stopped there. I got right back up again, and on the third try, we were finally successful. The next puzzle I stumbled upon was a pitfall trap. I could smell the overwhelming stench of corpses of those who have gone before me and not succeeded. I took one step and failed right away, which nearly claimed my life. I waited a while to start to feel good again before I went back in. I took one step and then another, and another, and another. And before I knew it, we were almost at The end. What unbelievable luck. But as luck would have it, we fall just at the end. And that's not to say we didn't make any silly mistakes getting all the way across, but we eventually did. I was able to climb down a well into the second level of the underground pass. I was able to find some food as well when I happened upon prison cages with slaves. And although I felt their pain, I had to move forward. I shuffled my way past a pit of giant rats, which only brought me to a path of my most dangerous road I had seen yet. I failed over and over and over again. I had failed so many times that all of the food that I had brought in with me was gone by the time I had even succeeded a single time. You must nearly be perfect to get through this pitfall. I kept failing and coming back again. But 12 hours of trying later, I was finally able to succeed. I got towards the very end, which had been the first time, and I passed it immediately. And 12 hours of trying and failing had finally brought me to the place that little did I know I would spend the next 7 months at. As I went through the pipe for the first time, I felt this sinking voice in my head telling me to go back through. Although I wanted to push forward, I knew that I had to listen. So I did. The voice I heard throughout my time not only brought me comfort, but words of encouragement. And although I had spent 7 months by myself, I felt like I was truly never alone. I kept going and going and going.
Hear me. Join us.
Hey, sorry to break the fourth wall beyond here. I wiped. I died while piping. I think I went out of aggro range and a skeleton killed me. Basically, what I had been doing is you can simply set up a foot pedal, which is what I did. I did it on my laptop. This clip is from my laptop after I wiped. I quickly stopped recording clips from my laptop because I had a couple clips go corrupt, so I would simply log out of that account and log back in for the level on my main computer. I knew that there was a 0% chance of me getting back to my death pile within the hour, so I just called it. And I went, I'll just get everything else. I'll go around, pick stuff up. I sold some knives, bought most of my stuff back. This will be the standard items that I get if I do wipe in the future. Looking back, I don't need a net for anything, so I'll replace that with a knife in the future as well. Like the great UIMs that came before me, Settled, Rakeen, Verf, we all wipe. And luckily, as you can see the top left-hand corner, I think I had to go back to Lone Bridge because I forgot an axe or something. It didn't take me 1,000 hours to rebuild. Anyway.
Make them all pay. Death is only the beginning. Give in to your desires. You can't hide. Blood, pain, hate. I will release you. I can set you free. I'll swallow your soul. Kill, maim, murder. The power of the gods could be yours.
And just like that, 7 months was over. I knew that I needed some food and some arrows to continue my journey. After a quick trip outside to the general store, I went back in, and little did I know, the first thing that I would be doing again was killing. This time, and every time after, it was just a little bit easier than the time before. I pushed a boulder down the hill and crushed a unicorn where it stood, because I knew that it would be pushing me on my journey towards where I need to be. I happened upon a couple of travelers in the underground pass, Harry, Carl, Jero, and I knew that they would have a similar fate as that unicorn. Luckily, I was able to push them up against the ropes and slaughter them where they stood. Hearing their screams and unable to run away was frightening and yet exhilarating at the same time. I took the badges from each one of them. Once I had finished slaughtering each and every one of these kind travelers that did nothing but give me food and potions, I took their badges and made my way down to the well. I knew that I needed to throw them down there, and that was the last thing that I needed to do before I could enter the most grand chasm you will see in your entire life. I was congratulated by Koftik for simply killing the paladins who were surviving, but I was more concerned with leaving this place, and as I walked down the long corridor, I peeked over and saw what looked to be where the evil lurked in this terrible place. On the lower level of the chasm, I actually ran into a couple dwarves down there. One in particular was named Clank. And my buddy Clank, he gave me a pair of gloves. And while they were gloves to help me with something a little bit later, the gloves were actually pretty good gloves. Believe it or not, I'm surprised he gave them to me for free. In fact, I feel like these gloves may be the best gloves that I get for quite some time. Despite having some brand new spanking gloves that were very nice, they were not enough to help me defeat a demon that I had to along my way. In fact, I spent minutes attempting to take it down, and I soon realized that my range level was simply not high enough, and I needed to go off and train just a little bit. It out-healed everything that I could throw at it without even trying, and before the end it was back up to its normal health after minutes. After a short while I came back with 35 range, and that seemed to do the trick pretty darn well. The first demon fell to me, and there were still 2 more that I had to get down, but they did not last very long either. After lighting this tomb on fire, I knew that there was only one other creature that stood in my way before I could finish what I had started. The last creature that needed to be expunged from the planet goes by the name Calrag. It is a terrible spider that lives in the deepest part of the chasm in the underground pass. It is the home to many minions as well, but thankfully Koftik sent some of his friends to come down and hold some of them off me so I could easily slay him right where he stands. They all jumped me immediately after, but thankfully I got out of there with very little harm done to me. Before the end of my odyssey, I happened upon something very sad. Cages, holding what looked like what used to be people. I felt bad for them. I felt like I knew what they were going through. The people didn't want to be there, and yet they were. I began to make my way towards the center where the temple lied, and unfortunately, on my way there, I fell through the crack, the first and only time I had fallen down. I quickly got back up and slayed one of the monks that stood there, and I took his clothes. I opened the door, and a man named Ivan began to yell at me, and now I knew who caused all of this pain and this chaos, and I threw what remnants left of him into the well in the Dal, and that was the end. I gained his staff, but what have I lost? Shortly after this, I made my way out and made my way back to the king, victorious of conquering the underground pass. He gave me praise after praise, but I knew that it meant nothing to him. In fact, it put him in more danger. I walked towards the exit in which I knew the rest of my life lied on the other side. I don't know what the rest of my story holds for me, but I do know that it will be special. And while I might be hated, and I may face trials of all types, I will push forward, and I will find out the truth. Thank you for watching the first part of my story, and here is to many more.
Welcome to the Wall Beyond.